welcome back to the Precision Personal Training Podcast. This is episode number 55. Today's guest is someone I've been really looking forward to sitting down and chatting with for a while. If you're involved in combat sports, chances are you've come across his work online. He's built a reputation as one of the go-to nutritionists for combat athletes, working with everyone from amateur fighters right through to professionals, competing on some of the biggest stages in the world, such as UFC and ONE Championships. So he's helped hundreds of fighters make weight, fuel performance, and recovery properly, while also becoming one of the leading voices online when it comes to cutting through myths around nutrition when it comes to fighting and fight camps. So today I'm joined by Mr. Yannick Magee. And Yannick, I'd like to thank you for coming on to the podcast today. And for anyone who doesn't know you or know your work, do you mind introducing yourself?
Yep, no problem at all, bro. Thank you for having me on. So as you said, I work with a lot of I suppose you would say the highest level of athletes in the country. And even lower level, I work with anybody from their first fight the whole way up to maybe people that are fighting for world titles. So yeah, I've been doing it now. I went to uni late and graduated then in 2016. So I've been kind of doing this from about 2015, 2016, so the guts of 10 years. Full time now, about 3, 4 years maybe coming on. So yeah, I was doing it part time while I was working in a pharmaceutical company, and then I just sort of gradually it was going one way or the other. I was either going to quit it and go stay in the day job or go all in and give it a chance. So yeah, I just decided I'll give it a go. So touch wood, it's been going well so far. So I've been doing this now, yeah, as I say, full time, probably 3 coming on 4 years.
Nice. And when you got into nutrition, did you just start off as a nutritionist in, like, let's say, general broad scheme of things, trying to get into working as maybe like dietetics or a dietitian, or were you straight into combat athletes?
Yeah, it was kind of very general. I suppose like a lot of people, a lot of maybe coaches and PTs and other nutritionists generally start with, you're only trying to get off the ground, so you'll take anybody on, anybody willing to work with you or anybody willing to pay you, you'll try and help them. So yeah, I worked with a broad range of people, like so many different, people just for fat loss, maybe, housewives that were trying to get in better shape. I was working with businessmen. I was working with, footballers, fighters as well. I was always involved in combat sports, so I was always working with fighters as well. But yeah, it was pretty much just everybody and anybody kind of thing, which was good as well because I got a lot of experience working with different types of people, different backgrounds, different needs, and different approaches, I suppose, to their nutrition. So it was good to get a range of different people, but I eventually then decided to niche down on the fighters. I graduated, it kind of like was I suppose it was like a bit more of a natural progression because I was involved in combat sports. It was more and more fighters were generally coming to me, and then it just kind of snowballed from there. So it was a gradual move away from jack of all trades then I suppose, and then niche down towards combat sports.
And were you actually fighting and competing yourself before you got into this?
Yeah, yeah.
Or okay,
Um,
wow, nice.
Yeah, so that was kind of the reason why I actually got into nutrition in the first place. I didn't actually want to do nutrition in uni. I wanted to be a physiotherapist, and I failed up here. We had to do a thing called the HPAT exam, which was like a
Yeah.
4 or 5 hour exam, very, very hard. So I failed it. I didn't fail it. You get a certain number of points that you need from it to get into different courses. So I didn't get into physio twice. It was just impossible to prepare for the exam. I have a very, very short attention span, so trying to do a 4 hour exam for me was a nightmare. But my second choice was nutrition. So the reason I wanted to either do physio or nutrition was because I was fighting and I was competing then as well. And it was kind of just those kind of things seemed to, physiotherapy for fighters would have been brilliant, or nutrition for fighters. So it was kind of, yeah, it was from that that actually got me interested in it in the first place.
Fast. And I think, like, let's say what fascinates people about nutrition and combat sports is it's completely different from the average goer, I'd imagine, when it comes to an actual camp. So can you talk through, like, let's say the journey of, let's say, any fighter when they come to you? what are the things you're kind of looking at? Is time one of the biggest things when it comes to, like, let's say the lead up to their fights, like how long they're given their nutrition plan and protocol, you could say.
Yeah, I think for combat sports, for athletes or fighters, some fighters wouldn't consider themselves athletes even though they are. It's kind of, I suppose, going back to working with a range of different people. That was very useful for them when you're working with fighters because fighters aren't. It's not solely weight loss. It's not solely performance based. It's not solely habit based. It's not maybe somebody that has an eating disorder. It's all of those things combined in the one thing. They kind of touch across the board. So yeah, it can be difficult working with fighters. It's not a case they're like a bodybuilder. They're just trying to get as shredded as possible. It's all of the above. So that you have to kind of just approach it in a different way. You're not solely just obviously everybody knows and you know yourself that you want to lose weight, you go into a calorie deficit, but it's not a case of just like just focusing solely on cutting the calories. You have to try and manage their training output, make sure that they have enough energy availability for their training, for their recovery, that they're not going to run into any issues, maybe even with the relationship with food. A bodybuilder doesn't really care about getting super, super shredded and going through all the shit stuff that comes with that because it's not nice. They don't
Yeah.
care about that. They just want to get on stage, do it, bang, done. Like a fighter has another fight coming up, so you kind of have to kind of balance it all. That yes, you're getting them lean, you're getting them in shape, you're getting the weight down, but you're doing that while not sacrificing performance, and you're doing that by not putting them in too much of a hole where they're going to massively rebound then in between camps and then screw themselves up for the next fight and the next weight cut. And then obviously you have the weight cut as well. So it is a big, it's a lot of, so it's a lot of plates to juggle. But as you say, as you touched on there, time is usually the biggest thing. If a fighter comes to you short notice, you're pushing the boundaries. Sometimes they're in a good place, but generally if they come to you too short notice, their diet's not in a good position. Their weight's high, they're not eating the right amount of things, and you're going to have to really sort of push the limits a wee bit to get them to weight, which is never what you want to do. So, yeah, I suppose like the main thing if you're working with fighter is time that you'd want to have, but unfortunately, that's not always the case. A lot of the time,
Yeah.
they don't care until they have a fight. So that could be a difficult thing too.
And is there an onus on them to kind of stay on top of their nutritional habits that they probably build from the first camp or first fight, uh, to stay on top of that? Because obviously you don't want to gain too much weight
Mhm.
post fight either, and then have a shitload of work to do in the lead up to the next one. So are you working with guys as well, even post fight in that regard?
Yeah, so a lot of the people I work with, I work with them long term. I've had fighters that are on with me 3 or 4 years of people there that have been with me from the very start. Now, I'd be a liar if I said every one of them, or even the majority of them, are, on their diet all the time or
Yeah,
100%, switched on. They will go through periods of, outside of fight camp. They'll not so much binge, but they will blow up a bit in weight. They'll go up a bit. They'll not be as focused on their diet and things like that. And they'll just go and enjoy themselves, and it's just the way it is. You can get people that will, I suppose, to some extent, focus on their diet outside of fight camps, and they'll use those habits, and they'll try not to let the weight blow up, maybe as high as it used to blow up. So you do see that a lot. You see people's relationship with food improving, their behaviors outside of fight camps improving a lot. But it does still happen. You can try everything in the world, but it's very hard to get them to manage it perfectly all year round. So yeah, it does be somewhat up and down, but you find with the people that are a little bit more engaged in check-ins and coaching and wanting to get stuff in place afterwards, generally tend to do a lot better, obviously. But they do somewhat drift a little bit. So it's just one of those things, just with fighters. I used to actually put out content, all this stuff. Oh, I'll fix your outside of your fight camp and do this, and you'll not blow up and weight and all. And it's, to be honest, the more I done it, and the more like the more I see, the more fighters that I worked with, it doesn't really happen as well as you would like it to. So I don't even say that anymore because you're talking shit, like basically. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, they do still blow up, but maybe not so much as what they used to.
Okay. And then obviously you've worked with, like, let's say, the average Joe Soap. Do you see a complete difference in fighters, even probably amateurs to professionals? Like, do you see a difference in just even adherence to plans when they're in a fight camp compared to, like, let's say your everyday Joe Soap just trying to lose a bit of weight? I'd imagine these boys have a deadline and it's a different mentality and they're completely dialed into what they have to do.
Yep, 100%. Like I always say, there's no bigger motivation than knowing somebody's going to come and punch you in the face if you don't follow your diet. You know what I mean? Like like fighters are, I mean, one of the big reasons. I suppose it was natural for me to get into this because of my background, but that was another thing that sort of pushed me more towards the fighter end of things. I still do a little bit of corporate nutrition things and stuff like that, but there's so much. A lot of those clients are, they're busy and it's very hard to get them to stick to things. Fighters, when they're dialed in like crazy how like adherent that they can be to their diet. You can tell them to eat anything and they'll do it, and they'll even, I suppose, want to push themselves even harder maybe than what they should be. They'll, if you're trying to tell a fighter to maybe go and have a treat meal or do a refeed or have a diet break, it's very, unless you've been working with them, it's very hard to get them to do that. So they can be even stricter on themselves than what they need to be sometimes. So yeah, they can be highly motivated and highly adherent when they need to be. And
Yeah.
then if you push the limits too much, then when they don't have a fight, it can sort of go, as everybody sees with certain people, they can go completely the opposite direction as well. But yeah, it's trying to get that balance between both of those. Get them
Mm.
switched on, include in, but just not so much as well. Try and give them a wee bit of freedom and flexibility there as well.
And do you ever see that even like let's say post fight? I know they're gonna have their binge, they're gonna lash out. Are you ever telling some people to actually like relax and enjoy themselves? Let's say they finish a fight and it's coming up to Christmas and like Joe, nearly like the corporate guys, they're high achievers, they want to do well.
Mhm.
These guys want to do well in their fields of let's say fighting and competing. Do you find you're nearly trying to get in their mindset as well to be able to switch off and kind of detox as well from fight camp and everything that comes with it?
Yes, there are a few like that I have worked with that. And do you mean, I suppose, like they're maybe always trying to be dialed in and they
Yeah.
all need a bit of a break? Yeah, there's a few people like that, even, I suppose trying to get somebody to have like a bit of processed food, even for training. Like I'm saying to some people, you could eat this before training. Yes, it is an unhealthy type food if you want to classify it as that. It's highly processed, but it's going to be functional for what you're using it for. Try to like even get that into some people's heads. Is crazy. Like they're like, no, I wouldn't eat that crap. Like, and then you get them around. Not that you'd have to force them to do it. If they don't want to do it, they don't do it. But if you say to them, look, try it and see how you get on, and then they're like, well, I actually feel great here. Or if you're like, right, have a treat meal. Sometimes I would like have free meals. If I know the weight's good and everything's good, and I know somebody maybe has that sort of all or nothing type mentality as well. I know that's maybe not the same thing, but I would almost say to them like during camp, right, let's have a treat meal during camp. Let's have once or twice a week you can have whatever you want. You don't track it, you just have it and sort of improve that relationship with food in that sense. Um, do you get people maybe that are on it all the time outside of camp? Not so much. Not so much with fighters. I don't really. Some people are. Yeah, some people can be a wee bit much like, but for the most part, most of them. The biggest problem I think for them is the all or nothing. They're all
Yeah.
in fight camp or they're all out when they're out of fight camp. So it's just trying to get that balance.
Okay. And then when it comes to the process itself, these guys and girls tracking macros, meal plan, or is it client dependent, or does it depend on closer to kind of peak week or fight week? How does that work there?
Yeah, so very, very much, say, very much client dependent. I know a lot of other nutritionists, everybody that's sort of well known within the space. I've been doing it that long and I've kind of networked very well. the more well known, I suppose, high end influencer type nutritionists that do it, all hundreds of thousands of followers. Like I know some of those guys are just strict meal plans and they're just like follow this and that's what you get. I've always taken the approach, and I don't know, maybe it's just from being a fighter and knowing what it's like. But I've always given the approach that it's more like you need to work with the person that's in front of you. I can't be telling one person to follow a meal plan if they're too busy or they just don't have time to do it, or if following a meal plan for them, just causes too much of a burden for them. So then we'll start to work maybe on habit-based things, or some people will track with, some people will follow set plans, some people will do a blend of both of those. Some people will do non-tracking based methods. I personally, well, anytime I cut weight, I never tracked. I always just like dieted, just change up the quality of my food, done a bit of fasting maybe sometimes, just, chopped and changed things, knew what to swap, different things like that. So yeah, I kind of take the approach of like, right, what's most suitable for the person and let's go with that. Getting closer to the fight week is where it changes. Fight week itself has to be very, very tailored. So it is sort of more so set plans then. And again, I say person or client dependent, but it's also situational dependent as well. If somebody has a lot of weight to lose in a short period of time, you're not going to give them so much flexibility there with just picking and choosing food choices and habit based things. You're going to have to dial it in a lot more stricter, and it's just is what it is. So yeah, it really does depend on the person, and it does depend on the situation as well. But that definitely fight week itself, that has to be very, very tailored. So yeah,
Okay.
to be following meal plans for fight week.
Then coming into fight week itself, I feel like you probably see it all the time. It's such pressure around it. Just for anyone who wouldn't know, weigh-ins, like how does that work before the fight? What's the specific kind of days out? Is it how many days out? Is there a specific time frame they have to make weight?
Yeah, so there's different formats. General format that a lot of people would see, obviously the UFC and things like that, or professional boxing, even Thai boxing would be a day before weigh-ins. So, depending on the organization, different times. MMA generally tends to be quite early, between 9 and 11, maybe in the mornings, or 12 o'clock maybe. So it's the day before the weigh-ins. So they have that full period of after the weigh-ins till the next day or the next night to recover and rehydrate and get everything back in again. There's also same day weigh-ins, where you and there's different sort of versions of that same day weigh-in where you could be, say for talk's sake, I have somebody competes in the worlds at black belt for jiu-jitsu. He weighs in and he has to go into the bullpen beside the mats, weigh in there, and he could be competing within 20 minutes, an hour,
Wow.
maybe, just depending on what it is. So you don't really have that recovery period to refuel, rehydrate. So what you do in the build up to that has to be obviously very different than the day before weighing. Um, you do have the same day weighing where you could maybe weigh in at 6 o'clock in the morning and compete later on in the afternoon or even in the evening, so you can kind of stretch things a wee bit more there. Um, you have multiple day weigh-ins as well, so certain competitions, amateur boxing and the world's Europeans for MMA, you'd weigh in, compete, weigh in the next day, compete, weigh in the next day, depending on how you progress through the competition. And then there's also week before weigh-ins, which is it's happens sometimes of some amateur boxing competitions. So you would weigh in like maybe and not fight until the following week or a few days or a week later and compete and then have to weigh in the day after. So they can vary a lot depending on the organization and the setup and stuff. But majority is like same day or day before. That's what majority of people are doing.
Okay. And then water loading, what's your approach to fight week? Because like I'm sure again you see it all the time. Some people online should probably just trying to fearmonger and just push their message more. What's your take on manipulating water when it comes to fight week?
Yeah, look, it can be done, and it can be done quite safely. If you know what you're doing and you're not pushing the boundaries. I think the dangers lie. with manipulating water, cutting water, and you're either doing that via you changing your diet, if you cut your carbohydrates, your fiber, reduce your food intake even, that's going to impact your hydration. You're cutting your sodium, that's going to impact your hydration. If you're water loading, obviously, cutting back on your water too. So all of those things impact your hydration levels before you even go into a sauna or a hot bath or something like that or do an active sweat. So, you're all going to be somewhat dehydrated. You can do it safely, if you don't push the limits. I think the dangers lie when people don't know what they're doing, or they're doing things that they see other people do, but maybe aren't suitable for them. Um, or they're pushing the limits when it comes to not so much the dehydration. Like it's crazy what you can actually some people can actually withstand in terms of dehydration. I think that the dangers lie more in the overheating. If somebody's in a hot bath or in a sauna and they're dehydrated, their tolerance to the heat is a lot less, so they can't actually basically regulate their temperature as well, and then their core temperature shoots up, and then that's where the dangers are. So you see a lot of talk online about, oh, it's so dangerous, weight cutting so dangerous, it should be banned, this, that, and the other. Um, it can be dangerous. It's not dangerous if you do it right and you don't push the limits. It can be done quite safely. Um, I think that's where the dangers lie, is when people are really, really going above and beyond and really trying to, squeeze every drop of water out of them and go cut crazy amounts of weight. I think extreme weight cutting is dangerous, but weight cutting isn't dangerous, I suppose, is the best way to put it.
Why would you have to go extreme about it? Are you trying to would that be because you have so much weight to lose and you didn't give yourself enough time, or are you trying to get into a certain category there? Like, let's say if it's like kickboxing or anything like that, or does it all depend?
Yeah, I think there's so many different things that influence it. It could be even from maybe the blown up between fights and then they get a short notice fight. Fighters are the worst. Like, from dealing with so many, I've worked with over like maybe 500 fighters, and for a lot of them for long term. Um, they would tell you one week that, I'm not fighting now until November. And I'd be like, yep, dead on, sound. But 3 weeks later, they're like, hey, I've got a fight. Like, thought you weren't. You put a plan in place, right? Let's gradually pull this weight down. Let's focus on these habits. Let's do this. Let's improve your performance. You maybe even put their calories up and you start trying to like do different things like gut training and things. 3 weeks later, they're like, oh, I'm fighting and fighting a couple of weeks here. I need to make this weight. And you're like, what the hell? Like, just out of nowhere. So then they're having to push the limit to get it down. So they take short notice fights. Um, could let themselves blow up and then just jump in for a fight. They can have external influences as well from maybe coaches or managers. I've seen that even in the past where, maybe the manager's saying, for you to be competitive at this high level, you need to be cutting a lot of weight. All the top guys are cutting a lot of weight. You could make lightweight when realistically they're a welterweight, or they different people can influence the fighters, and be saying to them like, you could make this weight, and then they're starting to really push the limits. Um, or maybe an opportunity comes up at a lower weight class, it's a title fight or something like that. So many different things can influence it. So it could be on them, basically. It could be on the fact that maybe their coaches and their managers are pushing it, or it could be just like one of those, like the risk is kind of worth the reward type thing.
Yeah.
Right here, look, I have an opportunity to fight here at flyweight. I'm usually a bantamweight in MMA, but if I win this fight at flyweight, I could get into the UFC, or I could do this or do that, So you see that a lot as well. So just really depends. It is what it's just is what it is. It's one of those things. As much as you'd love to change how the culture is and the thoughts around weight cutting, people are people are always going to push the limits. They're always going to do it. Um, some of them will think that they're going to get an advantage out of cutting a lot more weight, and there's that as well. Um, but yeah, it's just one of those things. You're always going to get people that's just going to want to push the limits, and I think the thing is just trying to not stop them from doing it, but trying to like educate them on how to do it as safely as possible, and then try and sort of maybe steer them away from it if you can.
Yeah.
If I can say to a fighter, look, maybe don't take that fight in 6 weeks, maybe take one in 12 weeks, maybe you're going to be in a better position. You can sort of be a voice of reason there sometimes for them as well. But in the end of the day, it's down to them, it's down to the coaches, down to their managers sometimes what they're going to do. So yeah, you just have to roll with it sometimes.
Yeah. Then, what's the purpose of kind of reducing your fiber intake in the lead up to weigh-ins, fight week? Does that have a profound effect on their weight when it comes to their fight week?
Yeah, it does and it doesn't. I think people overplay. So, I think by this stage, right, there's so much information on social media. From when I started, when I was personally fighting and competing, there was nothing. We didn't have a clue. Like
Yeah.
we had like no idea what we were doing. Maybe somebody had been traveling somewhere to America and somebody told them to rub albaline cream on them to help you sweat. So we're all like, all right, get the cream and just sweat. Right now, we're maybe drinking a bottle of Lucozade and rubbing yourself in cream to try and get the rest of it. It was just madness what we were at. But I think now everybody kind of has an idea of all the principles and the strategies and stuff like that because you just follow somebody online and you're gonna see the information. Sometimes it's wrong, sometimes it's right, but for the most part, if you're following the right people, it's right. I think the whole fiber thing, it does work, but it really depends on your habitual intake. Some of the fighters are like, yeah, yeah, sure, I'm gonna cut fiber and I'll lose loads of weight. You might not. It really depends on what you've been having. And from experience, most fighters are not eating anywhere near enough fiber to really get a big impact um, from cutting the fiber and cutting the residue. So basically, what happens if you're eating a lot of fiber or high residue diet, it doesn't really digest as well in the digestive tract, and it basically leaves a bulk in the digestive tract with water attached to it. That can basically be like you taking a load of food and putting it in your pocket and standing on the scales. If you take that out, you're going to lose weight. So basically, that's kind of like a crude way of putting it. So you cut the fiber, less fiber and less bulk in the digestive tract, and you're going to be lighter on the scales. But if it's not in there, you take out. You know what I mean? If you're already kind of mid to low fiber diet and you cut your fiber another wee tiny bit down more, it's going to make no difference to the scale really at all. Like so, it has been studied, and some people could lose up to maybe half a kilo or a kilo, in a few days, but they were habitually eating a lot of fiber. So I think that's the big thing. What you're habitually doing will be what will matter, I suppose, more. If you're eating a lot of carbs, a lot of fiber, a lot of sodium, all of those things, that's what matters. So yeah, I think people just see the principle online and they're like, oh, I'll just use that. And then you're like, well, you're not actually giving it any thought behind. Are you actually eating a lot of fiber? Are you eating a lot of sodium? Is this suitable for you? That sort of thing. So there's a lot more to it than just pulling the fiber and hoping for the best kind of thing.
And I think this is where it's important because it's like it's just there's cowboys in every gig, and I think let's say if you see, and it was one of the guests I had on a podcast recently where he said confidence can be mistaken for competence, and
Mhm.
it's a case where like if these guys are seeing it, they might have a good few views, good few followers, they're going to believe it. But I think it's important where they have that one-to-one tailored coaching because at the end of the day, everything is contextual. Like the person in front of you at let's say 6 p.m. is going to be different to the person you're talking to at half six or 7 o'clock, whatever it is. Do you know? So again, it's just a pinch of salt with all these things.
Mhm.
And it leads into my next thing. Do you prefer baths over people spending excess of time in saunas, or
So,
are you on the fence either
uh,
or?
I suppose this sort of strengthens what you just said there as well. Like, there's so many people say this, that, and the other. And I think the people to listen to are the people that say the answer is usually in nutrition or cutting and different things, is it depends. Do you
Yeah,
know what I mean? Like, yourself, like it really depends. Like I could say I personally prefer the baths, um, for the fact that it's easier to regulate the temperature, their heads out, you can bring your arms, legs out, all of that sort of stuff. It's easier for me to monitor because there's nothing worse than me having to sit in the sauna as well. I've had people cut weight like and I'm in there for hours as well. So I've went to weight cuts and maybe even helping two or three people in the saunas, and I've probably spent more time than all of them in the sauna. Now I'm sneaking away and getting a wee drink every once in a while, but and they're not. But it's rough. So it's easier on the coach as well to use the baths. But I have people that if I put them in the bath, they're going to start stressing. They're going to freak out. They just hate it. They really hate that cutting weight in the bath. where if you put them in the sauna, they feel a lot more comfortable. They can move around. They don't feel as claustrophobic. They can sit with a bit of, but you can do it in the bath, a bit of music, but they can sit with their friends and there could be, a lot of people around and they just get talking and takes their mind off the cut. So it really depends. If I was to say which one that I prefer, it would be the bath. But what I would use with people would be which one they prefer. Um,
Yeah.
if I can maybe get somebody then to try a bath, like I have one person in particular, like hated baths, hates them, or did hate them, and then done one for his last cut, and he was like, because we had no access to the sauna, and he was like, that weight actually flew off, and he goes, that was sweet. He says, actually, didn't mind that cut at all. There was like
Class.
three or four of us in the room, and we were all chatting, so it was kind of the same sort of environment as the sauna for him. So yeah, I think it really, really depends on the person. It does. You have to make it the environment as comfortable as possible for them. It's not about what I want, it's about what makes them feel the best, I think, especially during a weight cut. If you talk or you don't talk or you put music on, you don't put music on, so you have to sort of read the room kind of thing and just make the make the whole experience about them, which is yeah.
Yeah.
They're and the divas sometimes when people are cutting weight, you have to just sort of put your own thing aside and just get on with it. Yeah.
And then keto for fighters.
Shite.
Obviously, yeah.
No
That's
long-winded
that,
answer there. I just shit. Yeah, just shit.
that's how I came across you. It was, I think it was one of your reels. I loved it. I was like, this guy is straight to the point, no bullshit. It was class.
Yeah.
Why are you so outspoken against keto for
No, you know
fighters?
what? I'm not even. I don't really care if somebody wants to do keto. They do keto. It's up to them. Again, it's down to the person. I've had people in the past that said, "Oh yeah, I done keto and I felt great," and you're like, "But that's dead on if you felt great, but you might feel better if you put a bit of carbs in around your training." Plus, the fact is you're low carb, so you don't have really that glycogen stores to pull on for your cut. So you're maybe missing a trick there that you could be using in the final week. So, it's just, yeah, it's just not suitable for athletes. I don't feel. Some athletes maybe, but not fighters. Fighters, their output is so high, the intensity of their sessions, for the most part, are either moderate to high intensity. So they're going to be more reliant on carbohydrates, and they're going to benefit a lot more from getting some carbohydrates there. Plus the fact they have to cut weight at the end. So it just makes more sense to be having carbs in there. Definitely does. So I think for fighters, again, for some athletes, maybe they can get away with it, and can do very well on it. I just don't think for fighters it's suitable at all. But again, somebody wants to do keto and at the moment, so it's just going to
And
make that.
obviously,
So that's the whole thing.
obviously, you've been on the block then for a while. Like it's not your first rodeo with any of this. Is there anything that has made you cringe over the last while regarding combat nutrition, where you're just like that? No, do not do that if you're a fighter coming into fight week or anything.
No, not
It's probably
really.
keto.
Keto, maybe, yeah. Carnivore and stuff. It seems people starting to do a lot carnivore and asking about carnivore. Fasting as well would be one. Like I personally fasted when I was, and I still do fast now. I'm trying to drop weight, but my output's not that high. Some of the athletes that so like I suppose some of the amateur athletes that are maybe training an hour, 2 hours a night after work, they could fast during the day. It's the pros that are training twice a day, maybe even three times a day that wouldn't get away with that. There's nothing really so much that make you cringe. You know what actually sort of annoys me. I'm gonna go off on speed. Um, like I've seen a lot of like kind of nutritionists popping up that are just using these like trending reels type thing. Do you know what I mean? And yes, they've got maybe 30, 40,000 followers and loads of thing and all, but they're doing like weight cutting with me with CTE, like they're doing like trying to just be an influencer basically. And they're
Yeah,
just stupid reels. I don't mind. Like some reels can be really good and funny and they're good for engagement and good to get followers and all that sort of stuff. They're almost like dumbing down the whole thing and trying to make it fucking, you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm trying to get at?
yeah,
These
yeah.
reels that are online now and it's just they're just stupid. Like this good, this bad, this thing, and I'm like,
It's trying to win that algorithm, that short
That's
form
yeah.
attention
Yeah,
span.
they're
Like,
more
yeah,
concerned about like getting followers and fucking getting a few fucking views on their
yeah,
reels than actually helping people. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, obviously you have to put out content, you have to do that, and maybe that stuff works. But like your content, I think as a fighter should be your results. As a
yeah.
for fighters, like look who I'm working with, look who I'm helping, look at the benefits they're getting, not here's fucking a good food, bad food, better. It's just stupid trending
I
reels.
know.
I don't really like that sort of stuff in the space. There's a lot of people trying to get into it, and it's just they're more influencers than they are actual coaches and
Coaches.
actually help people. Do you know what I mean? It's more just trying to do it for the view.
You can't add context to them short form
No,
reels, you know,
no.
like that quick. I know exactly what you're on about, and it was funny. I got a kick out of one of yours where you're on about I think it was three important tips, and then you're like three tips, like five or six or so. You can't dumb it down because
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
too hard.
Yeah, you can't, like I know like you have to do content, and I did go down the route of trying to like put out more content and add somebody in and things like that. But yeah, it's one of those things you have to do it. But there's a lot of people trying to break into it now. It's been seen since I've been doing it a long time. It's kind of been seen as, oh look, that looks like something fun to start doing now. Start working with fighters, but don't realize how fucking dangerous it can be. And what actually goes on behind the scenes. And it's not a case of like, I'll throw out a couple of reels here, get a few people in, and then just fucking throw them a diet plan. Or you need to really be careful with what you're doing with fighters. Especially when it comes to the weight cutting end of things. So I think there's what it sort of annoys me. And look, I'm all for people becoming coaches and helping, and if they're coming from it from the right place where they're generally actually well educated, they know what they're doing, and they're not like putting somebody at risk. I've heard there's a few people actually have somebody blocked that me and another friend of mine that coaches a lot of top guys in ONE FC. Um, and you know the two of us, I think he has him blocked now as well. Some of the information that he was putting out, and he was one of these guys with his reels, and they're trying to get his trending reels, and they go, but like some of the information that he was saying was wrong. I mean, completely wrong. Even like stuff about drinks after the weigh-ins, like, oh, you need a hypertonic drink. Like it's the actually opposite that you need. So even the information that he had was wrong. But he got maybe a few clients because he was doing these trending reels, and then he was working with people for free and stuff like this. But like doing really dangerous cuts with people, like putting people at risk essentially. So that would really annoy me, like that sort of stuff. Yeah, I
Well,
think.
you no, but you're right. You have people
Yeah,
who are literally willing to get punched in the face for obviously a career in entertainment. They're going to do anything you say.
yeah,
So they are
100%.
trusting you with everything. So if you lead them down a bad path, you're fucked, but they're worse.
Yeah, yeah, it can go south very, very handy. I've seen it. Like I've seen with cuts being pushed to the limits, and I've seen some dark stuff, happen. And that was even earlier when I was working with people at the start, and the influence of managers and coaches and stuff, trying to get them to go to lighter weights and things like that. Like it can go very, 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 very bad very, very quickly if you don't know what you're doing. And there's some people out there that like especially in Ireland, there's a lot of like people that are PTs, but they're not really PTs. Do you know what I mean? They're like kind of
Yeah,
online coaches, influencers now,
yeah,
and they throw people diet plans. They're trying to kind of use that same sort of format with fighters and weight
yeah,
cuts. Oh, I'm going to be a online combat sports nutritionist now or an online combat sports coach now. You actually have no idea the dangers of what could happen. It's not the same as like somebody down the road. I'll show you a diet plan and do a few sessions of weights. If they're cutting weight and they're doing things wrong, it can fucking go really, really bad, really, really quickly. So yeah, I think it doesn't make me cringe, but it makes me annoyed. Those sorts of things like that where people are trying to get into the space without the right understanding of it and putting people at risk. I think that's the big thing. Like,
yeah.
yeah, I actually had somebody, I'm not going to mention them, but I had their strength and conditioning coach tell them to start taking with on clenbuterol, and they were doing a weight cut, and I didn't know he was on clenbuterol, and the weight cut went like it was not a lot of weight cut, and he started cramping and having issues. And I was like, what the fuck is going on here? And I was like, what did you do? And like, he was talking through everything and was cramping and ended up having a seizure basically nearly. And I was like, you need to ring an ambulance for him straight away. This was all over the phone. And his girlfriend come on the phone to me and says, I don't know if he told you, but he's been taking some supplement that his strength and conditioning coach gave him. And I was like, what's that called? And she goes, clenbuterol. And she goes, next
Jesus
door here. I go, what?
Christ.
Clenbuterol. And I was like, look, if you're taking clenbuterol and you're doing a bodybuilding, that's fine. Or you're doing, but once you start water loading, you start cutting sodium, you start doing that, it's already playing with your electrolyte imbalance, and then you're doing all that on top of it. So basically, you end up with hyponatremia, and only like I was like, get him to the hospital. Like, God knows what could have happened. Like, you know, so that sort of shit there, where people are getting involved in it, where they don't know the dangers and the insights of it, that's a very, very dangerous route to be going down. And I think that's the problem with online, you know, and the internet, where people can just jump into a space and then start calling themselves coaches and things like that. So yeah, I think it's you just need to be careful like who you're listening to.
Yeah, it's scary because it's just not regulated, and technically it's not illegal what they're doing, but it
Oh,
should be,
yeah.
which is messed up. But then obviously, it leads into one of my next questions: supplements for fighters. Do you recommend any in particular, or do you delve into them at all? Or
Yeah, they're kind of like the cherry on top for me. You know, if they have everything else in place, then we can start looking at supplements. You know, just the usual ones like creatine, beta-alanine, and I think off the top of my head, vitamin D, omega 3s, stuff like that. Like, I wouldn't really delve into it too much, but those would probably be the big ones. Maybe a multivitamin if they're maybe going to be limiting their food intake, especially when it comes closer to fight week as well. Maybe like a multivitamin, omega 3s, things like that. Maybe even a probiotic or something like that.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, that would be it. Like the main ones would be creatine and beta alanine in camp, and then maybe multivitamin stuff like that. So yeah.
are electrolytes worth the hype?
Depends. It depends. I think you know yourself. I think people oversell them, like so they.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk too much about them because I know I have a client that has has an electrolyte company, so I don't want to.
They're
Clients,
unreal. They're unreal. They're great.
yeah, yeah, they're brilliant. His are good. His are the best, actually. So they are. Funny enough, I actually recommended them to all the fighters that I have on before he even came on board. But yeah, I think they're kind of they're yeah, they're over sort of pushed a wee bit maybe, especially here. Do you know what I mean? We don't really need them as much. If you're training in Thailand, you're training in Dubai or somewhere like that, maybe yeah, your sweat rate's gonna be through the roof, but not in your fucking you get 2 or 3 hot days a year, like we're training in the freezing cold all the time, you hardly sweat. So yeah, probably don't need them.
Just then, is there any lessons you've learned from coaching the athletes and see the heights that they get to? Is there any lessons in particular, like even imposter syndrome, self doubt, limiting beliefs? Are you seeing any of this kind of? Are you getting a benefit from seeing these guys overcome this as well, in their fighting camps?
So for them to have any of those issues or
No, but have you got that? Have you learned from them in a sense, getting through that? Like, let's say the self doubt leading up to a fight, the limited beliefs they put in themselves, just a mindset. Have you learned any particular lessons in particular from any of your fighters?
nothing really. Like to be honest, I don't try and get as you know involved maybe in the psychology end of things with them because it's obviously outside my wheelhouse. I try and sort of just stick more to what I'm there to help them with. Um, yeah, you do sort of, you know, you get an admiration for them and for the drive that they have. You know, there's some of the fighters that I have on like this weekend. Niall McGreevy's fighting for Rajadhanarm world title, which is absolutely unbelievable. Like that's he's the first Irish person to ever even get close to that level. Um,
Class.
yeah, it's you get an admiration for them. You know, and it's unbelievable to see them, and you get very I get very attached to them. So I do like as I said, there's some of them that I would be more a fan of than a coach, if you get me, you know. So yeah, it's just amazing to see sort of the effort that some of them put in, like the and the fact that they're to go all in with what they're doing. It's admirable that they're doing that. Lessons that I've learned from them, not so. I know a lot of them are stressors. So they are, yeah. I've learned that, yeah, a lot of them do panic a wee bit about their weight. Like I've noticed that. That is a big thing. Like you're constantly just getting messages of people freaking out, and then you're just trying to be the voice of reason. But yeah, um, no, I can't really think, to be honest.
Oh, that's cool.
That answers
And
the question. I don't know.
no, it's good. If there was one thing that you'd want, like let's say amateurs listen to this now and they're probably not taking their nutrition as serious. If there was one thing you'd want them to start doing from today and listen to this podcast when they do, what would that be?
Suppose maybe just taking a bit of time and putting a bit of effort into it, whether you're hiring a coach, whether you're following the right people, whether you're reading up on things, whether you're even messaging people and asking questions. I've always said to people, if like even if they're not clients, just write to me on Instagram if you need anything. Just feel free to ask questions. I think that there's so many resources now for people to get help from. As I say, like going back to when I was doing it, you didn't know who to ask. You were just asking people in the gym. Um, and which was probably never not never, but it was a lot of bad information. Whereas now they have access to so much information. So like they have the UFCPA that have a big document you can get. You have so many different people that are high level working with high level people that are putting out quality information all the time. There's so much access there. So I think just putting some effort into maybe learning about it and learn about it right and just applying it to themselves. Again, you don't have to hire a coach to be able to start improving your nutrition. It's not going to completely change your game, but it's going to improve things. And I think if people are cutting weight, especially, and they're maybe putting themselves at a wee bit of a risk, learning how to do it right and learning how to improve on that's just going to make things safer for them. Um, if they're not spending their whole fight camps just dieting and worrying about weight, they can focus on performance, focusing on getting better, and it's just going to be better for them as an athlete, but also better even for their sport. If
Yeah.
if you're getting fighters that are coming in there fresh and they haven't killed themselves in camp to make weight, like the fights that they're going to put on is going to be next level. It's almost like the enhanced games. If a load of people taking
Yeah.
steroids, the fights are going to be a lot better. If a load of people, fighters are going in there fresh and they haven't killed themselves in camp, like they're obviously going to be more entertaining fights. They're going to feel better. So, yeah, I think just put a bit of effort into it maybe is the big thing. There's so much out there that they can get their hands on now. So, there's no really excuse not to put an effort into it. Like.
Class. Okay, so remind everyone what's the big fights coming up this week, and if there's any actually in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, so the three big ones this week are the three big ones in Bangkok. Now, I have a few guys fighting over in Dubai, and there's a couple of people here, local enough. There's actually a couple in Dubai boxers not. But the main ones anyway for me, especially from a coach and a fan point of view, is McGregor's on as well, actually, by the way. I forgot about him.
Hey, yeah.
He's not a client though. So not yet. Tom Kyo is fighting in One Lumpini on Friday. So he'll be making weight on Thursday morning. Hopefully getting a contract. So this will be 3 wins all in the first round, no doubt, if he gets another first round finish. Tag Gannon is fighting in RWS, so his second fight out. His first fight was unreal. He made he made some impression, like so unbelievable. But everybody knew he was going to do that. And then Niall McGreevy in the RWS headlining it for the Rajadhan title. So all being well, touch wood, there'll be three boys coming home with wins, and Niall will be coming home with a belt and making history basically. So that's insane. Like for me, as I done Thai, I done Thai boxing before. I done MMA and then Thai boxing before I started coaching. And like for me, as just a fan of the sport, like being able to go to Bangkok and work with three of the best out of the country is it's a dream come true. Like so, and then see Niall lift the belt is going to be it's. I've actually told my one we were supposed to be going away and all for to a concert, and that's all completely cancelled. So I told her, I
Class.
said, look, if it's the same weekend that the Niall's fighting. I goes, I don't care what you say. I'm going to see Niall fighting. So it's a once in a life.
Class,
Well, hopefully, so fingers crossed. But that's it. Yeah. So
one
tag,
hundred percent.
Tom tag and Niall. Can't wait.
Class. Well, best of luck with them. And just, I want to say thank you for coming on the podcast. It's been great. But before we finish up, how can people find you? Anyone listen to this that are interested in working with you, your social media, website, plug it all here.
So yeah, I have a website, but I don't really use it that much, or people don't really go to it. Most people are just Instagram, to be honest. The website's actually on my Instagram page, but it makes no sense. So yeah, just Yannick Magee Nutrition on Instagram. I'm pretty much the only Yannick Magee in the world, so I don't think you're gonna get the wrong one. Like, so there's only me, like, as far as I know, anyway. So yeah, it'll not be hard to find if you know how to spell it. So
Yeah,
YANNCK McGee MAGEE. So that's
deadly.
right.
I'll have it all down below in the description, anyways. But Yannick, I
I'm
really appreciate you coming on. Thanks a million for that. And best of luck
Definitely.
with the fights this week, too.
No worries. All right. Chat to you soon.
Cheers, bud. Thank you.
Talk soon. Have a good one.